Hello, fellow gardeners. I'm Dr. Jen Dickens-Massey. I'm a physical therapist with a passion for wellness and prevention. That's why I created Genergy for Life, to help others be happy and healthy and strong. Do you ever find when you're gardening, sometimes you'll have pains, maybe in your neck, your back, your hips, or your knees? Well, sometimes this is related to the positions that we're in when we're gardening. So with today's tutorial, I'd like to show you some safety tips and proper body mechanics to help keep your body safe. We'll begin with one of my favorite muscles in the human body. It's called transverse abdominis, but that's a mouthful, so we'll just call him TA for short. Now this muscle is part of your abdominal muscles, but it's not part of the six-pack. Rather, it's part of your eight-pack. It's below your belly button. It's a flat, deep muscle that wraps from the front all the way around to your lower back. So you can imagine when you tighten this muscle, it's like cinching a back brace. This truly is your built-in back brace. So take two fingers, find that bony spot at the front of your hips. You're gonna go inwards towards your belly button about an inch. Then you're gonna push back towards your spine. That's where that muscle lives. We're gonna take a deep breath in to begin. When you breathe out, pull your belly button in towards your spine, like you're trying to fit on an old pair of pants that used to fit. So, deep breath in, breathe out, belly button in towards your spine. Good. Now, if you feel this working in your back, that's okay. That's where that muscle wraps from the front to the back. So your first homework assignment while you're gardening is to try to keep this muscle engaged at least a little bit while you're performing any of your gardening tasks. Now that you've got your TA muscle engaged as your built-in back brace, let's come over and harvest a little bit. I want to talk to you about raised garden beds. They really are a back saver. And I know that for some of us this isn't an option, but if you have the ability to make a raised garden bed, it really truly can help to save your back, because when it's time to harvest, you don't have to bend over. So I'm a huge fan of the raised garden bed. Even if you have a raised garden bed, there may be times that you still have to bend in order to harvest things. So let me show you how to do that safely. I like to use a stool whenever possible. The idea is that you want to be at the same level as the things that you're harvesting. So if it's a raised bed, a stool this height is perfect. If you don't have a raised bed and you're doing it on the ground, sitting on the ground on a sheet really is the best way that you can do it. I'll show you some hip stretches in a little bit on how you can do that safely. So here we've got some sweet potatoes. I'm gonna keep my belly button pulled in towards my spine, and I'm gonna try and maintain good posture. It's tempting when we go to harvest things to let our posture crumble like this, but remember to keep your shoulder blades pulled tightly together. It will help keep everything safe and take extra pressure off of your rotator cuff muscles in your shoulders. So let's start digging in here and see if we can't find some sweet potatoes. Woo! There's two right there. 3. Go. If you're working with plants in the ground, I recommend either a sheet or a gardening cushion like this. The easiest way to get to the ground is to take one knee in a lunge position, place it on the ground, using your hands on your opposite knee if necessary. And then you're gonna go to 2 knees, then you're gonna put one hand down and lower your hips to the ground. If that's uncomfortable or it's too challenging, another way that you can get to the ground is by taking a wider lunge like this, engaging your abdominals, then you can place your right hand on the ground like this and swing that leg through here. Once you're on the ground, if you're flexible enough in your hips, the easiest position to work from is with your legs crossed like this. Once you're in this position, you can warm up your hips like this, a butterfly stretch. So engaging your abdominals, keeping your chest upright like this, grabbing at your ankles if that's comfortable. If this is too difficult, you can stretch those feet out in the beginning. So from here, you're gonna let those knees fall open towards the floor, getting a nice big stretch on your inner thighs. Once this becomes easier, you're gonna work those feet closer towards you. Again, holding onto your ankles, keeping your chest upright, and you're gonna give a little bit of a forward bend. I'll show you from the side. We're making sure that we're bending at our hips and not at our back. Once those hips are nice and warmed up, I like to cross one foot over the other, and then I can begin weeding or pulling my mint here. Again, remembering to keep your abdominals engaged as much as possible and bending at your hips rather than your back, keeping that posture upright instead of letting it cave forward. If this position is still uncomfortable, even after stretching your hips out, you can take your cushion and sit on your knees instead. But again, in this position, make sure when you're leaning forward that the mobility comes from your hips instead of your back, because that puts a lot of extra pressure on your lower back. Depending on your hip flexibility, there's a third option for how you can garden with things on the ground. The way you do this, I call it a power stoop. You're gonna take one foot forward, then the other foot. You have to have a lot of ankle range of motion and hip flexibility here. You're gonna take your knees and push them out to the side like this, and you're engaging your butt muscles. You may have to do a lot of stretching in order to be able to attain this position, but if you can, this is a really safe place to garden. It's easier on your back and you're really working your leg muscles. All right, now you're finished with your gardening for the day and you've got some tools on the ground that you need to pick up in order to clean up for the day. I'd like to show you how to do a proper squat to keep your back and your knees safe. Most of us use gravity on the way down, and then we use our back muscles to lift us on the way up. And those muscles are able to do that, but that's just not what they were made for. We truly should use a proper, safe squat in order to pick our tools up off the ground. So let me show you how that looks. From here, you're gonna stick your bottom out like this, and don't let your knees go over your toes. Stick your bottom out as if you were sitting in a chair. Then you lower the rest of the way and pick your tools up. The other thing that I see often wrong with a squat is your knees come forward like this. That puts a ton of extra pressure on the middle aspect of your knee. So I'll show you again by picking this mat up off the floor. Bottom out, no knees over toes, engaging your abdominal muscles, and there you have it, a proper squat. Now let's talk about proper body positioning when raking or hoeing. The first and most important thing is that you keep your core engaged, pulling that belly button towards your spine using that TA muscle, your built-in back brace. The second thing is we want to alleviate any twisting in your body like this. So with my rake out to the side, I'm going to be facing forward with my core engaged, making sure that my shoulders are pulled back. From here, it's tempting to lean over and use your arms to perform the motion, but this puts a ton of extra stress on your back. So remember, your legs are stronger and have a lot more power. The motion should come from your legs, and your arms are staying stationary, holding that tool. So remember, it's like you're dancing. The legs are doing the motion. Your arms are just holding steady. If it's been a big day of gardening and you have a ton of weeds to move, sometimes you may need to use a wheelbarrow. I'd like to show you how to do a proper squat to pick up the handles and then how to transport that wheelbarrow. So just like we talked about before, your bottom is out. Don't let your knees go over your toes. Keeping your core engaged, you're gonna pick the handles up. Notice that my posture is still upright and not collapsed forward. Just like when you're raking, you want the motion to come from your legs, not your arms and your back. So keep your body upright and your core engaged as you move with your legs. If you're working on your squat or your power stoop for gardening on the ground, a really great place to start is with the chair behind you. A lot of us will have our knees over our toes because we're afraid of falling. So if you start with a chair, you know that you're safe even if you lose your balance. Start on the edge of the chair like this with your chest posture upright, your knees and your ankles in line. you're gonna lean forward with your core engaged and gently lift your bottom off of the chair, engaging all of those muscles in your thighs and in your bottom. Once you're able to do that, progress a little bit higher towards standing. Once this becomes easier, you're gonna try to just gently tap your bottom on the chair, like this. Here. Remember not to let your knees come in towards each other. Another thing that you can do when progressing towards the power stoop is a calf stretch, because that ankle range of motion is very important, not just for gardening on the ground, but also for decreasing your risk for falls. Hold onto the chair if you need to for balance. You're gonna step one leg backwards and straighten your knee. Then you're gonna gently push forward. Notice that my ankle is bending. This range of motion is very, very important. The third exercise I have for you is working on your hip flexibility. So while seated in a chair, you can lean back against the chair and you're gonna bring that knee in towards your chest. If this is uncomfortable, bring that knee out to the side just a little bit. Hold it for 30 to 60 seconds and perform 3 times on each leg.